Okay, so we have Trap versus Zest. I think I'll do it from Trap's perspective. It's a 4-minute 42 game, so we're not going to have a very long game here. It's going to end at 3 minutes like it always does. 3 minutes, 3:30, you can call a game out. That's what I'm getting from these replays. So copy and paste builds up until, what is it, 1 minute 30? Okay. So up until 1 minute 30, PvPs will look the same, except where are the second probes? Oh, I do remember this game. Okay, this is a very funny game. Alright, so after the second gateway, either we scout the opponent or we send out the second probe to build a proxy pylon. You see Trap building this proxy pylon down here. This is extremely unlikely to ever be scouted, because if you're the opponent, you're just worried about anything nearby that's going to make a generally an anti-armor unit, so Void Ray or Immortals, and almost never a Void Ray, so you're just looking for the Robo, and then you're looking for Proxy Stargate in one of these fringe areas around here. You're never going to go and look on the opposite side of the map for the Proxy Pylon, because what's the point? Unless it's a Twilight, unless it's a DT Shrine, it's not going to be proxied this close to the opponent's main anyway, and if it is that, a Phoenix Scout is the thing that's going to scout that, and much later. So it's not a big immediate threat. Of course, this could just be a pylon to freak out your opponent, who's never going to find your proxy pylon, and for the rest of the game, I guess you've got this vision. I feel like this pylon might even be okay to just put like here, because it'll be a pylon that freaks your opponent out, and by the time he finds this, you'll get information. So if he wants to proxy something himself over here, this pylon will actually see his probe run along here. So it'll be kind of like a proxy thing. Whereas this isn't necessarily going to spot, even if he proxies a Stargate here, this won't spot anything. Unless he literally just runs his probe straight to this pylon. Anyway, in the meantime, Zest has run his second probe all the way across the map. And actually, let's just triple check that it is the same timing as always, and it's second gateway, and then we run across the map. No, it's not. Okay, it's actually off of the first gas, so it's a different timing. So I lied, it's not 1 minute 30, same. It's one gas, and in order to get your second pylon so quickly in your opponent's natural, he sends it off of the first gas, which is very interesting. So we're going to see that run along now, all the way across the map. You can see that there was a chance that Trap goes up here and scouts this. Zest is waiting a small amount. Actually, I think that's why. He sends this out so early, because it reduces the chance of the probe being seen by a scout, right? Although in Ephemeron you can just kind of take the bridges and there's like a 50% chance you'll never be scouted anyway. But that's a map specific thing. So Zest actually is going to wait here until the amount of time he needs to then put the pylon down on time, to time with the regular second pylon for when he needs it. Which is, I think, about 1 minute 43, so he's going to have plenty of time. Actually, interestingly, we're going 3 on each gas, so not 15 out of 16 and rally in. We're going 3 on each gas and 14 out of 16. So Zest is actually mixing it up a lot here. Like, compared to the regular game, everything's usually identical now. Zest has made quite a few different changes. Wonder why he puts a pylon there and not there. Surely there's less likely to be seen by a scout. Doesn't matter. I guess you could scout this way and round, or this way and round, but not a huge deal. So in the meantime, let's see what Trap's doing, because this is supposed to be a Trap replay. It's just Zest is doing something way more interesting, so we were just looking at that. You can see that there's no probe down at that second pylon, so it's not like Trap wants to proxy anything. It's just a kind of a scary I've got my second pylon out on the map, you better beware. Zest needs to be cacking himself, kind of thing. And you can see in production tab we got 2 Adepts as our first units from Zest, and a Sentry Stalker opener from Trap. Trap puts down the pylon to see Zest's first units.
In the shadows.
And we both go into a double Stalker thing. It's very common, obviously, just to go either a Sentry Stalker and a double Stalker, because the third and fourth Stalker insulate you against all sorts of aggression and oracles and stuff like that. So if you look, there is a Robo in production, and actually there's an Immortal in production. And here's the... I've done this a lot against Terrans on maps like Ephemeron and what else was there in the previous map? Well, it doesn't matter. You basically do the most obnoxious proxy in the world, and if it gets up, you win the game, and if it doesn't, you lose the game. So if your opponent is better than you, or at least that's what you consider, this is the kind of coin flip that levels the playing field in your favor, because the playing field wasn't very leveled in your favor in the first place. So even though it's now more like a 50-50 chance of winning, if your chances of winning were 25% anyway, 50-50 you should take, right? So I feel like that's what we're doing here, building the most obnoxious proxy robo that you could do. Other than Wings of Liberty style, the robo is like over here. There's like a pylon and a robo, maybe your first gateway is here as well. And then at like 3 minutes, an immortal walks out of your main and you're just completely bamboozled. In the days of Wings of Liberty, this was the way. But unfortunately now we have to do this slightly less obnoxious in the dark spaces of your natural. Because until this Nexus is finished, the building won't give you vision of this. And the third pylon, typically, it's put on this side. So in PvT, your second pylon often sees this kind of stuff, and in any case we're used to a bunker in the natural, right, so you would check that. But in PvP your pylons aren't ever going to scout this, so you have to send a probe there to see it. And Trap, even though he knows that the second pylon wasn't in Zest's base, he's not expecting it to be in his natural necessarily. He can scout everywhere else around his base. He just doesn't expect it to be in the one place that's where it is, and where it's so obnoxiously close. So if you look at this from Trap's perspective, you can just feel the bamboozle. And Trap is building a Nexus right now. He's building a sentry. He's even building a shield battery against those adepts. But none of that is going to help against a unit that does 50 damage to armored units and buildings. And here comes the pylon. As I say, it's down south of his Nexus, so the pylon's not going to see it. And here it is, your probes are under attack. He's got 3 stalkers on the wrong side of his base, so he can't really defend. And here he comes, he's got 3 stalkers and 2 immortal and 2 sentries. And the immortal's like, I don't care, I'm an immortal, I'm just going to kill 3 of your stalkers. And then we're going to use up some force fields, so 2 force fields. The value of those sentries, actually all 3 used up now, so we're building a pylon to try and keep the units out. And there's a War Prism as well. And if you guys know, projectile dodging against stalkers is extremely strong when you have small numbers of units. So this projectile dodging, saving the adepts, the efficiency for Zest is going to be there to make this a very one-sided exchange. Again, 2 shield batteries is great, right? But you have a War Prism, so you can choose where to take the fight. You can go around the back of the base, or you can just plow through, right? Because you've got better units. Mind you, there is an immortal on the way for Trap now. It's actually still going to be later than Zest's second one. But, you know, generally speaking, we're absolutely hecked. Oh no, so that we have a force field, but we actually cannot break through the shield battery damage. But at least that was a very clean way of doing 600 damage. There's 2 stalkers shooting you, and like 8 stalkers or 6 stalkers and 2 other units shooting the stalkers. So the enemy stalkers. So it was a very efficient trade. But just look at how, like, again, one-sided, one mistake. Trap did one mistake this game, which is not scout his natural. GG. That's it. The game's over because you made that one mistake. And that's how PvP rolls. And that's how top level players like Zest, they know this kind of stuff. They're happy to take this kind of risk. Because if you scout this Robo and the Robo dies, the game isn't necessarily over. Zest would be at a large disadvantage. Significant disadvantage, but the game's not over. There's ways in PvP to get back into the game. If you've got disruptors or a good War Prism drop, Depths get in the main, Oracle get in the main, good force fields when the opponent doesn't have a sentry, a War Prism of his own. You know, that kind of stuff can get you back in the game when your disadvantage is on the other side of the map. But when you get wrecked by an immortal, that immortal is going to continue into your base and take that advantage and push it immediately. Whereas killing this Robo, or even forcing a cancel more likely, that's when the scout would happen. You know, that's just going to put us at a disadvantage economically or like tech-wise, but it's not going to be an immediate threat. You're not going to walk across the map with 3 sentries and kill Zest. Which is why this is kind of a very cheeky but beautiful cheese. By the way, notice how much less skillful this is than cannon rushing PvP. Like, this is what people complain about That's the irony here, is that they're like, oh, why do you stop cannon rushing and do something that requires skill? This is 100 times easier to do than cannon rushing. And Trap didn't get a chance to do anything useful and skillful this game. He literally just executed the first 3 minutes of his build, which was just make a sentry and a stalker and an Nexus, and then 2 more stalkers, and that's it. So I honestly don't accept this argument that PvP is some sort of incredible skill-based matchup, where cannon rushing is at the bottom of it. I mean, there are some cool things you can do. I love Disruptor Blink Micro. I think that's got so much room to be good and bad. Phoenixes obviously take some practice, but generally speaking, it's this. It's just kill moves and chess. Stats is chest all of his opponents. Zest is chest Trap, and that's how the game's gone. It's really not an exchange of micro and skill, because Trap is as good as Zest, if not better, at micro and execution and general speed and mechanics. Right? This is literally just a chess kill move, and that's all that we've seen here. All that we've seen so far, the bamboozles. That's what PvP has boiled down to, which is great, right? Because as I said, this is what you see on ladder. This kind of stuff every game, and you just think, wow, is there not more to this? Should we not all be opening Sentry Stalker and just going into a nice macro game? The answer is no, you shouldn't be. And even when you do open Sentry Stalker, the guy that 2 base all ins the other guy, well, that's the one that ends up winning.